Well, joining us now is Randa Slim. She is with the Middle East Institute, a senior fellow, and the director of the Institute's Conflict Resolution and Track 2 Dialogues program. Dr. Slim, thank you for being with us this evening.
Good to be with you.
I want to begin here with the hospital blast. As you know, Israel is denying responsibility. Instead, they say their tracking points to a rocket fired by Palestinian militants, which was aimed at Israel, but essentially fell short of its target. How likely is that?
Well, look, in this fog of war, it behooves Israel, which is being accused of having fired this missile that hit the hospital and killed hundreds, to basically provide evidence to an impartial third party to look at the evidence and then decide whether the Israeli narrative now that it was a Islamic Jihad missile or rocket is the correct one, or their narrative is, their narrative is correct one, or whether the other narrative, which is very much widely accepted in the Arab region, that it was an Israeli hit.
So even if it were to go to a third party, though, without a doubt, whatever people's conclusions are right now will have an impact on what's happening on the ground. Does this have the immediate risk of escalating the tensions?
Yes, the tempo of escalation now has been picking up speed for the last, I would say, 12, 18 hours on a number of fronts. And I think this attack will quicken the pace even more. There is now a very angry public mood in almost every Arab country, also in places like Turkey. And that, I think, is going to put pressure on the governments in these countries, on non-state actors like Hezbollah, to do something to respond to this kind of public anger.
Now, as you say that, without a doubt, we have to point to the fact that the U.S. President Joe Biden is headed to Israel tomorrow. He is to stand alongside, essentially, the Israeli Prime Minister to show solidarity. So I wonder, could his visit prove to be provocative?
Look, the optics now are going to be very difficult for the president. So I don't know what he's going to say. If he's going to repeat the mantra of unconditional support for Israel and support for Israel's right to defend itself, but also decide how to defend itself, I think that's going to be problematic going into his meetings with President Sisi of Egypt and King Abdullah of Jordan. Already that kind of unconditional support that the US has been lending to Israel since Hamas attack on October 7th has been, is being viewed in the Arab region, in the wider Middle East, as partly responsible for Israeli behavior, basically giving carte blanche to Israel, not putting conditions on Israel. And people are asking and I think the two officials, the Arab senior official who will be meeting with, they are going to request of President Biden to, put some condition on Israel that they have to live with the laws of war, as the president has said in his first address to the American people, that Israel is a democracy, there are laws of war, and Israel has to live with these laws of war. So far, we have not seen Israel living with these laws of war. Not only we are talking about the attack today on the hospital, but there has been also an attack on UNRWA, the UN Refugee Agency. One of its schools was attacked. 6 people were killed. These schools have become shelters for people fleeing, the Israeli attacks on their homes. So, and Israel has the coordinate of every single UN agency, every single UN school in the district. And so Israel cannot deny or cannot say that, they did not know that this was a school. They had the coordinate, and yet it was hit by an Israeli missile, and it was not denied by Israel.
Mm-hmm. I want to pick up on a point that you said, though, because you say that what is happening right now in Gaza may and could inspire non-state actors like Hezbollah to step up their actions. But what about state actions? How likely is this to spread beyond just Israel and Hamas in Gaza?
Look, there's always, this time, I think the likelihood of it becoming a regional war, and be it with Hezbollah, involving the Syrian-Israeli border, the Golan Heights, involving maybe, Iraqi militias, all these are members of what's called the resistance axis. It's definitely higher than before. In the past, there have been many, there have been at least 5 since 2007 and Hamas takeover of Gaza. There have been at least 5 confrontation, military war confrontation between Hamas and Israel. And throughout this time, Israeli objective was always to deter and punish Hamas, but never to eradicate Hamas. Because Hamas has proven over the years to be a useful tool for the Israeli governments, and especially the government led by Mr. Netanyahu, to basically say, we don't have an acceptable, credible Palestinian partner. Look at those Palestinians. They are divided between the Palestinian authorities, between Hamas, and the Palestinian Authority is weak. Hamas controls Gaza. It's a terrorist entity. We don't have an acceptable negotiating partner on the Palestinian side. Hence, we are going to push the peace process aside. And the international community, especially the West, has been going along with this myth that we can push the Palestinian problem aside and we can have an occupation that is sustainable and that is relatively cost-free. Hamas is no longer a useful tool for the Israelis. That has reached an expiration date. Their objective now is to eradicate Hamas, to eviscerate Hamas. And that is going to be a red line for groups like Hezbollah, a red line for countries like Iran, a red line for other members of the resistance axis. And that's why the likelihood of this escalating into a regional war, especially if the ground invasion of the Israeli ground invasion of Gaza is bloody and protracted, I think the likelihood of this expanding into a regional war is high. Now, is it going to happen? Is it preventable? Yes, it's always preventable. But is it more likely than in previous times when Hamas and Israel confronted each other? Yes, it's more likely.
Dr. Randa Slim, I appreciate the time. Thank you for that.
Thank you very much.